In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What is up, everybody? My name is Ryan. Welcome to the Toast on Rye podcast. Today, I got one of my great friends and fellow podcast hosts, Mr. Cory Sparks. How you doing, man?
I was doing well until about 30 seconds ago. I just started choking on Sunkissed, but I'm all right. I'm good.
Man. Yeah, man. No, so, you're a fellow podcast host as well. You're one of the reasons why I started too. So before we get started with mine, because this is about anything and everything, why don't you give us a promo of what your podcast is about?
Well, thank you, first of all, for letting me promote it. My podcast is called All Sports Now, where I basically cover all sports when you listen to it. So now, pretty straightforward name. So I go to college in Oshkosh, about 2 hours north of Kenosha, so pretty much right smack dab in the middle of Wisconsin. So what I do is I cover localized stories and I cover national stories. For localized stories, I will do things like invite special guests on who are in the college system, who blew up from the KUSD district in Kenosha, or I'll get someone from UW Oshkosh who's very close to me, who I know. Like I had Jalen Grant on there a few weeks ago, who was also from Kenosha, so that was a nice dual threat right there. But basically, I'll have anything from guests who are sports athletes to guests who are sports fans. I'll get their intake on everything, and if they're an athlete, I'll ask about their experience as well. So it's a little bit of everything.
Okay, yeah. I mean, yours is way more organized than me because like you got a niche, and then mine's just like, hi, come hang out with me.
There's nothing wrong with that.
But yeah, I mean, I started editing yours because I think, like, was I on your second episode, right?
You were on my second episode, yep.
Yeah, and then I was like, oh, I could just edit it for you if you want. He's like, oh, really? And I was like, yeah, man, let's do it. And then that's just became a regular thing. So yeah, I mean, I've been trying to keep up with the YouTube channel version of your podcast.
You're doing great. Don't worry about it.
But like
the MP3 is all I need.
Like I am behind like 4 episodes. I mean, I honestly like yours is very time sensitive, so I might as well probably just skip those for now and then, continue for the updated ones. But yeah, man, trying to run 2 different podcasts gets hard, right?
You're doing great. You're doing great. Trust me.
But yeah, man. So one of the first questions we got from the what do you want to say? The audience, because, most of the people that watch me, they have me on Snapchat. I asked them on YOLO, hey, ask me any question. I'll answer it on the podcast. One of the questions that was really cool, first question I'll ask you is, if you had to pick one song to describe your overall music taste, what would it be?
It's weird because I listen to a lot of different things. I'll listen to hip hop, I'll listen to alternative, and I'll even do a little bit of, no, those are pretty much all I do. So I guess I don't listen to all genres. I don't know. I think of Maroon 5 a lot just because they don't really have a song that defines they have different songs that define different genres. Like they just started bringing Cardi B in there, which I have mixed feelings about that. I immediately thought of Girls Like You. I don't know if that really describes me in general, but it kind of it brings her in, which has the hip hop genre, but it also has their genre as well. So I'm okay with that as my answer, I guess. I don't know. I listen to a culmination of things, so it's really hard to pin it.
I mean, for me, honestly, the thing about Maroon 5 is that their music quality, okay, not necessarily quality, more of their genre has just changed so drastically since their first album. Like there were a lot of more, not heavy rock, but definitely rock, especially with their first album. And then I think, what was it, 2012 on their album? That's when they went completely pop at that
They're
point.
like mellow, acoustic, pop, yeah. So,
yeah, it was kind of just, it was weird, especially when I heard Girls Like You for the first time. It's a good song, don't get me wrong. I love that song, but then as soon as Cardi comes in, it just ruins the whole thing.
I try and listen to the verse without Cardi. Like there's a version where she is cut out and Adam Levine just sings, and I'm cool with that.
Yeah, because it's like she comes in out of nowhere, hard. I was like, bro, this doesn't
brings a whole other mood to it. It's like, I'm sorry, you don't fit here.
Fit the song, right? So, no, but I totally get that. I think for me, I kind of listen to a plethora of different things. So it's like I'll listen to rap, I'll listen to alternative rock. I do listen to Christian rock, but not that much. I used to be heavy into it when I was more religious than I was before, and then I kind of ducked off from it. But I think a song that kind of perfectly represents it, I guess, is man, this is hard. It's hard picking one because there's so many different. Okay, if it was for rap, I would say anything off of To Pimp a Butterfly or Good Kid, Mad City by Kendrick Lamar. Anything off that album, that's kind of like what kind of defines like my rap taste. For alternative, I think we all know what I'm going to say. Anything by 21 Pilots, because that's one of my favorite bands of all time. I'm also into this like kind of bedroom pop type genre, if you know what I'm talking about, where it's like it's like music in people's bedrooms. So it's like, I think another one, Those Days by Cape Town, probably like something that will define that whole genre for me too. So yeah, there's just a ton of different things that really kind of define my music taste. Do you have like a favorite rapper or anything like that?
I was gonna say, okay, now that you mentioned Christian, and I immediately thought of NF. I would say, okay, because I listen to him a lot. If I were to nail like who I listen to or what I prefer in terms of music, I would say him. I've been following him probably since before the Search album, so at least for the past year and a half. But I really like the song When I Grow Up by him. It talks about the music video is great too. He's a garbage man. He's working drive-through. It basically shows how he goes through all these different stages and no one truly believes in him. And I can't say I personally relate to that. I have a lot of people who believe in me and support me, including yourself, who are helping me with this stuff. But his pursuance to hit that goal of being a professional rapper does not stop no matter what. And I think that can be attributed to a lot of things. Anyone who has an ultimate goal who isn't willing to let anything stop them. I like that song a lot for that reason.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was actually listening to it as I was on my way here because it's like, hey, man, like it's just about chasing your dreams in general. So it's like whoever doesn't believe in you, whether it be in music, podcasting, or like even like going to college or anything like that, it's like a motivational like, hey, I'm going to do this whether you like it or not. You know what I mean? So I totally get that. I think one of my favorite rappers would be, okay, if anyone that's listening to this and they're like, you're a rap fan? Name your favorite rapper. I like Logic a lot.
I love Logic.
I feel like some people just clicked off of the podcast right now, but let me explain.
For those of you who are still here, welcome.
But for me, like what albums I like by him is his second studio album. I can't remember. It's The Incredible True Story. I think that's his most cohesive project. I think anything after that kind of like dwindled down in quality, I guess. Like there's still some good songs in his whole career, but his quality of music definitely deteriorated over time. But I do respect the hustle that he had. So that's why he's one of my favorite rappers. Kendrick is another one that I really like. Otherwise, I mean, in terms of rap, who I like it's like here and there. Like, is NF like the only rap artist you like, or is there more that you can think of?
He's good. I'm not opposed to Kanye, but I feel like that's just me ducking into the mainstream. Especially when he came out with Jesus is King, I was like, okay, I'll give this a listen, and it was great. But NF's definitely like pinnacle for me, at least. That's one of the only rappers I consistently listen to. Just starting to get into Logic in the past 2 or 3 weeks, but I'd say NF is still like the top for me. Okay,
yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I've been getting into Lil Baby recently.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I don't know. I'm very careful when it comes to rap. Just because it's like, well, one, I can't relate to all of it in like what they talk about. So I go to it for more of like just the culture aspect of it, the production in general, because you can get creative with rap music too. So that's kind of where I kind of deteriorate. Where my main genre is definitely alternative rock. Do you have like a favorite alternative rock artist, if you can think of any?
What would Fall Out Boy be considered? Because I used to love them when I was in like, again, I'm not huge on music, but I used to love them when I was like late middle school, beginning of high school. So 4 to 5 years ago, almost 6 years ago.
I want to say they're alternative.
I want to say like a little bit of punk in there too, maybe. I don't know. It really depends on their album, I guess, too. But I used to love them.
Did you like their most recent album, if you listen to it?
I have not, no. Like I said, that was more of like a Cory phase, and now Cory has moved on. But I mean, it was. I used to love Volcanoes. That was a really good song. That's like how far back I go. That's like 2014, 2015 release.
Yeah. I've never really been a big Fall Out Boy fan. I do like, I think, 1 or 2 songs off of their last album. I don't really like any of their old stuff. Well, I think it depends on what album we're talking about. But I think their first album just wasn't too big of a fan of. I'm not really a big fan of that emo rock anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you can consider 21 Pilots quote unquote emo rock, but I don't.
They're just a bit of everything, to be honest with you.
Like
it's hard to nail them down to one.
It really is. But the closest thing to like emo I ever got in middle school, and I think freshman year, was like listening to Skillet for some reason. That was like my...
It's out there.
That was my angsty phase, because like they had a lot of like, I'm sick of this shit like type songs. So
You're like, I feel that.
right. I was like, but like I don't even know what they were talking about. It's like what are you sick of? Like, so that was like my closest thing to being angsty in terms of like emo stuff. But I'm definitely more into alternative rock. Another person I really like is Rex Orange County. If you know who that is.
I don't think so. No.
You might have heard his song on TikTok. It's like, how does it go? You're gonna wanna be my best friend, babe.
Oh yeah.
That's Rex Orange County. I've been getting into him slowly. I liked his album Apricot Princess. Loved that album. Pony was all right. I would definitely recommend Pony to you, though. I mean, to get started, it's really cool. Well, moving on to something that is definitely in your playing field. This is a question I got a few weeks ago. It was like, it's not that I didn't see it. I saw it. It was just like with the guests that I've had on so far, it's like no one can answer this except Cory. So I'm going to just wait for him to get on the podcast before I ask this question. But one of the best questions I've gotten so far is, do you think LeBron is going to win another ring before he retires? Because I feel like that date is coming up. Or, I mean, at least, do you think that date's coming up?
In terms of him retiring?
Yeah.
It depends. I'm still on that hype train in terms of him being able to play with his son. He's 36-ish right now, and I think he'll be able to. I think he's preserved his body. For anyone who's watched LeBron over the past 5 to 10 years, you notice a trend where people say, oh, he's kind of trending down this regular season, and then he turns up in the playoffs. That's intentional. He's preserving his body. He doesn't want to stop playing at 36 with bad knees. He wants to play through his maybe even lower 40s so he can play with his son for a couple years, or play against his son, depending on where he gets drafted. I'm sure he won't be able to dictate that process. I mean, you never know, though. You never know, because then you got LeVar Ball saying, I called my son going to the Lakers, and
right.
That whole dumpster fire. Well, that's a different conversation. In terms of LeBron getting a ring, that's a loaded question, because I don't think he can win it by himself as the best player on his team. I think Anthony Davis is the wild card here. He's on a 3-year, $106 million contract, this past one being year one. Both him and LeBron will be free agents in 2022 or 2023, depending on where that ball falls. I think if AD stays there and they continue to get help around, they had a really good bench this year with Caruso, and they had Rondo there as well coming off the bench, who has now gone. But if he has a good supporting cast, which is very broad, but most importantly, if he has Anthony Davis and he has close to the quality of what they had this year, I think he gets at least one more ring. So if everything stands how it does right now, and if they can preserve what they have, I would say LeBron does get one.
Do you think he's going to get more than one?
That's a contract issue. Again, if he can keep everyone, AD is not nearly as old as LeBron. I think that is a very dynamic duo, and that AD is a shooter as well as LeBron, and they can both bully people inside, and they can adapt to different teams. If you play a team like the Rockets that is small ball, very evidently with Clint Capella being their center,
right,
and PJ Tucker being down low as well, you bully them inside. You use your size. If you play someone who is bigger ball, like maybe the Memphis Grizzlies were when they had Zach Randolph, you shoot on them. You run around on them. I mean, Anthony Davis and LeBron James are freak athletes in that they can do just about everything at their size. They're one of those rare guys like Zion Williamson, who the league is just going to be drooling over until they'll never stop drooling over them.
Right,
but
yeah.
In a nutshell, I think if those two stay together, LeBron can get more than one ring for sure. It just depends on AD getting an extension, because I don't know if they'll get more than one ring in the next 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, it really all comes down to how other teams are, playing too, because it's like I was looking at Golden State. I mean, obviously they had some very devastating injuries in 2019 to the point where like their 2 star players are out for a season. So of course they had the worst record, last season, or I think close to the worst record in last season. And it really kind of depends on just how free agency goes. So if the Lakers do lose KD, or if even LeBron decides to leave at some point, then it's going to depend on if he's going to have to carry a team again, which he's for some reason he chooses to do sometimes. It's like, dude, you kind of shot yourself in the foot a little bit. But it's either that, or at some point it's kind of getting towards that, hey, I should probably retire thing, rather than like, I'm going to win another ring this year. So I think it just really depends on how motivated he is, who's around him, how cap space works with wherever he's at. Because I mean, I think didn't AD just take like a 1 year extension contract?
There was something along those lines, yeah.
So it's like or
there's negotiations at least.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if anything's
like
finalized yet.
So I think it just depends on who he plays with too, because he obviously can't carry a team. I mean, he can, but not to a championship. Or it's like he'll get lucky, because even in 2016, it was like you know, like he just got a little bit lucky in those key games, and like even when like refs started like kicking out certain players that were crucial to Golden State's play style, it's
like Draymond and all that stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
It was just like
they won by the skin of their teeth too.
Right.
So people have to keep
Exactly.
that in mind.
So yeah, I think it just depends on who he's around. Otherwise, I think you basically hit everything I was kind of thinking about. So
I do think he just needs a supporting cast, even if Anthony Davis was replaced by someone who is a little bit lesser in terms of their prime than LeBron right now, but still has about the same talent. Can't think of anyone off the top of my head because everyone's getting signed. Jason Tatum, Brandon Ingram, all them. The young guys are getting signed this last week especially, but I don't think the LeBron of right now could go back to that 2016 team in the Cavs and carry them. I feel like the fatigue is setting in and father time is inevitable. It's just very gradual, and LeBron is trying to preserve himself, but he's going to need that supporting cast. And if AD leaves town, I don't see them getting a championship. The West is way too competitive in general. They were lucky to get out of it this year, but they handled everything well. They relied on their bench players when LeBron left the floor. They didn't overwork him like Jimmy Butler had to get overworked because he was supporting that young cast. Great team, don't get me wrong, but he had to be on the floor for them to win. As long as LeBron can continue to have that role where he only has to play 30 to 35 minutes a game, I think he'll be fine. He just needs the help.
Yeah, that's basically how I feel too. This is kind of reminding me of a question I wanted to ask you. So obviously when you started All Sports Now, it was for your love of sports and everything, and talking about the analytical side and stuff like that. Where did that necessarily come from? Like, where did you get that interest in analytical sports or just sports in general? Where did you get it?
Growing up, I've always been a numbers guy, and I've always loved to watch sports. And I think as I realized, especially at the high school we both went to, that they had a communications academy, once I realized that the broadcast journalism industry meshed those two together, where you can call play-by-play and you can both watch sports and reference things. So I'd say once I was about 14 or 15, that's where my interest for analytics in sports and statistics in general really grew. Once I realized there was an avenue where both of those could meet, I got really excited and I realized this is what I want to do with my life. And once I realized podcasting was an industry, like junior or senior year, where I tried that out in newspaper for a little bit, where we did that online. And then once my girlfriend's father gave me a snowball mic earlier this year, everything was kind of just aligning, and I realized I really want to try this.
Yeah, that's kind of how I felt when I started helping you out with your podcast too. I was like, this is such a cool avenue, like not to say whatever you want, but to kind of like reach people in a different way, because like especially with podcasting, you can catch somebody inside their car listening to this or to your content in general. So I mean, with something like my niche, I can talk about social issues, and this is going to be in somebody's car, or they're going to listen to this while washing the dishes, and like I can get a point across. For you, you'd be able to give your opinion on, let's say, like the most basic sports debate ever, LeBron versus MJ. You can potentially have a side of that argument that no one has ever said before in anybody's ears. So I think that's what really like made me get into podcasting too. I mean, and even with you and the sports side of it, I mean, I'm not into sports all the time, but I can see why like you found that passion, you know? So what is your favorite sport out of all the sports that you talk about? I mean, like you only talk about football and basketball so far, and
right,
some baseball, but like, what's like your favorite sport to talk about?
Okay, I was gonna say to play is definitely baseball. I played baseball a lot when I was younger. I love talking about football just because there's so many different ways you can break things down, and because you really have to cherish the season. There's only 16 weeks. It's not like baseball where you can go, oh, he'll come back tomorrow. There's 162 games. So in terms of watching and talking about it, I think there's a lot more to break down in football because each game is so significant, and you're not able to say that's a throwaway game. In baseball, there's teams that they'll have the playoffs clinched in like August or September, and the regular season doesn't end until October, beginning of it. So you know what they'll do? They'll bench half their starting lineup for the last month, because why wouldn't you? Football, you can't do that. You can bench them for maybe the last week if you've clinched something, but I just love how no matter what, every single game in football seems meaningful, and you really have to, the way you break it down and the way you present information to others, especially like fantasy football owners, because they're relying on that too, is really important.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people don't understand how football can be complex, or like how, or like just basically how complicated football can be. Because I mean, to an outsider's perspective that, you know, probably watches the Super Bowl once a year, such as me. Okay, I just call myself out a little bit, but like for me, for example, from an outsider's perspective, it just seems like men mindlessly crashing into people. But there's actual like strategies, there's actual play calls, there's actual like maybe even math into it with what's, you know, with some measurements in terms of how far you need to throw this ball, or the speed that you need to cut for this pass, stuff like that, you know. And I mean, I think credit should be or like should be given to football in terms of how complex it can actually be, you know.
For sure. I think a lot of people, and this isn't outing you at all, like in general, just the general audience will look at football and they'll think this is a bunch of gladiators running at each other
right.
with helmets on. That there's debates over that because CTE is definitely a thing and tests are going through with that. But with football, you have to recognize coverages, especially if you're the quarterback. Anybody who studies football who wants to or has already done it, if you haven't, I really recommend it because it's a really complex sport. It's more than just meets the eye. Football players, they have to recognize coverages if they... Let's say you're going to run the ball right up the middle. Everyone at home could probably recognize for the most part when they watch football, there's a bunch of guys standing in the middle. That's the offense and the defensive line they're blocking. If you're going to run the ball right up the middle and that's the play call, and all of a sudden you see a safety and a cornerback creeping up and you go, oh, this other team is going to blitz. You do what's called an audible. You call a change and you say, okay, if they're coming forward, I should probably throw it deep and attack them because their safety's not going to drop back. And that's just a little bit of a sample of what it is, but there's a lot to break down. It's a lot more than just this guy has ball, let me go hit him. There's coverage, there is coverage recognition, there's playbooks, and everything is very calculated when it comes to football. It's very situational. If it's 2nd and 15, you're probably not going to run it up the middle unless you're the Bears. If it's like that was a direct out. Play calling
the camera. That was
but if it's like 3rd and 1, you're probably not going to throw it deep unless their coverage looks... It's just very circumstantial. And for anyone who watches football, they'll see that. You are doing what you are doing based on what the other team is doing. It's a direct call and response. It's like a game of chess, but a little more physical.
Yeah, for sure. What's like your least favorite sport to talk about? Like if you have one, because it seems like you're very passionate about it, but like if there's something that you could pick where it's like, it's not as fun to talk about, what would that be?
So it's more or less of a... kind of an information bias thing. I don't know a whole lot about soccer right now, and kind of hockey too. You don't score a whole lot. So I think I have to really work on being able to break those sports down more than just the statistics, because I love statistics, but I have to be able to break it down beyond that. Because what am I going to say? They scored 2 goals today. Like, you have to see how they're recognizing the defense's play style or something like that. I don't like calling those sports because I don't know a lot about them, but that doesn't mean I won't attack them. So I need to kind of broaden my horizons in terms of learning about them a tiny bit more. That's really the only reason. I mean, all sports are very unique, and I love that there's strategy in every sport. There's strategy in rugby, and I don't know anything about that yet. So
I was about to say, it's like that's the sport that makes that looks like it's just mindless. Like,
rugby or cricket or all that good stuff. So I mean, I would say soccer or hockey just because of a lack of scoring and my lack of information and knowledge base on it right now.
I was about to say, I mean, I used to play soccer, so I can help you out with that.
Yeah, for sure.
And I used to be a ref too, so it's like, you know, like there, like I mean, even as a ref, you can see all the. I mean, like because since I was a ref, I was mostly in the center, so of course I'm gonna have to call calls, but I also see certain strategies that the team is doing. I see what formations they're using. I see what what play they're calling. I mean, like, there's not really like plays. It's more of how do I say this? Like an improvising type of sport.
Yeah, you draw it up as you go.
So, but I mean, I think what you could do is you could watch more of the sport. I mean, I think soccer is one of those things where it's on all the time, or you could even watch college, or you can play a game yourself. I played for 8-9 years, so obviously I'm gonna know a little more than you. But like, you can at least watch it a little more. You know, I mean, and hockey is very similar, it's just on ice, and obviously it's a little more physical.
Yeah, for sure. Oh yeah.
So.
They let a lot more fly in hockey. They let them fight, and the refs just kind of put their hand in there and go, let's not do that. It's like, okay.
What are the chances that like the refs in hockey kind of like bet on who's going to win?
Oh, God. With how little they intervene, I feel like they got to do something. Because I have seen hockey before. I'm a huge like Chicago sports junkie, so I watched the Blackhawks a lot when they won like 3 Stanley Cups in like 7 years or whatever. And I feel like when there's that fight, the refs kind of they all have that instant where they look at the fight and they go, shit, I have to split that up. But in that instant, I feel like they're kind of wondering, he's messing him up a little more than vice versa. So I don't know if there's bets, but I'm sure they kind of had that initial thought of, I better help him out before it gets ugly.
I actually remember there was this one time I was watching an ESPN highlight reel, or it was like top 10 plays of the week. And there was like a little segment, I don't know why, that they chose now like to do it, like, or at least like at the time it was like, it's like, why did you choose doing your top 10 segment to do this? But they showed like a hockey play, and after like somebody scored, I think somebody got angry about it, and a fight broke out. But instead of fists, the guy just took his like, I don't know what they're called, the little hockey stick.
Yeah,
That's so
stick.
fucking stupid. But their hockey stick just swung at somebody's head. I was like, like
Self-control is out the window. They'll slam each other through the glass. It's great. It's just,
there's another time I was watching, like, I don't know if it was a Vine or something like that, but I was watching like a fan at a local game get angry to the point where he came up to the glass and just punched it, and then the glass just shattered onto the ice. I was like, you're not even in the game. Why are you angry?
He wants to be in the game.
Right, exactly.
So it's time to put me on.
Nah, man. But yeah, I mean, I feel like if you just watch more of those sports, I mean, I think hockey, I mean, I'm a little more biased because I love soccer.
Yeah.
But hockey is definitely hard to understand. At least it looks like it's the same mechanics as soccer, just on ice, but at the same time, they have their own rules. They have their own, because like even when we played it in gym class, I didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah. And obviously they weren't calling like offsides and stuff. So you
Right.
can only get so much. You could be a surface level learner,
Yeah.
which I pretty much am at
Like,
that
why is
point,
there 5 circles? Like, why? I'll never understand this if I watch it. So, you know. But I mean, like, in terms of like the analytical side, like, what do you typically try to look at when you look at stats?
It's circumstantial, but if you were to kind of broaden it throughout everyone, you look for consistency. Someone has one good year, that doesn't make them great. That makes it a great year. Someone has 10, 12, 14 good years, that makes them someone like LeBron James, who you start putting in that great to greatest of all time conversation. Same with Tom Brady. No matter what stats you're looking at, it's got to be consistent, whether that be championships, whether that be basketball, points a game. He's putting up 20 points a game 10 to 12 years in his career. He's probably got a few all-star games in his arsenal. He's probably a Hall of Fame candidate if he's got a couple MVPs in there. It all depends, but if I'm looking for a trend, I'm looking for consistency. I'm looking for someone who can sustain it over a long period of time. And if they aren't, I'm looking at why. Maybe someone's stats will fall a little bit like LeBron because they're letting AD in and they're saying, you do the scoring. Or Steph Curry, where his point total falls a tiny bit because he's saying, all right, Kevin Durant's here, you're a pure scorer. So I look for trends and I look for consistency to try and define how good the player is.
Okay, yeah, because I mean, like, when I was looking at stats to like do a debate on your podcast, I don't remember what episode it was, but I was looking at stats and I was like, oh wait, there's much more to stats than you think, because even for basketball, it's like I looked at stats for a whole team, and I was like, I'll give you like the Cavs, for example, they're back to being one of the worst teams in the league, but it's because all of the players only average 9 points a game. You're not going to win games with that much of efficiency rate. You know what I mean? It's like if you're scoring 10 points a game while your star players are doing all the work, they can only do so much.
Yeah.
So it's, I do agree that it's like there's much more to stats than just, oh, well, this player is great because they score 25 points a game. How is the team doing? Why is he why are they still losing? Stats definitely help out with that.
You look at a guy like Trae Young, for example, and this is no knock to him. He's putting up almost 30 points a game, and there was a lot of controversy, I should say, surrounding him being in the All-Star game because people are saying his team has won like 12 games. Why would you do this? You have to look at other stats. I mean, stats are just numbers. You look at the average age of that team. Oh, it's a young team? Okay, maybe that's not his fault. Oh, it's kind of a decent team in terms of age and there's some veteranship in there. Maybe he's being too ball dominant and he has to distribute it. It's just really circumstantial. It depends on the average age of the team, the role players, if they have any help. The Cavs, for example, Colin Sexton looks great on paper, but he's not on a winning team. So that shows that he needs a supporting cast, or he needs to change his play style a little bit once he gets that supporting cast to help them win some more games.
Exactly. And it's like not every player has that talent to do it.
Right.
So it's like at that point, it just comes down to their skill level, their there's, for a lack of a better term, legend status. Like how much can they take over a game, even if they are on a bad team? Because you look at somebody like LeBron, he was on a bad team want to say like 4 years out of his career, but he still took him to the playoffs and even the finals. Granted, it was in the East, but still. So I think that's where stats they are very important. So I think that's cool that you really pay attention to that part too, because I feel like a lot of commentators don't really look at that. They just go like, he's having a great year. He's one of the greatest of all time. Well, no,
you can't handpick stuff. That's the thing. You got to contextualize. You got to say, okay, what did he do in the past years? Is this a consistent trend? Is he rising, or is this a fluke? It all depends on the type of player. And if it's a rookie, obviously you have to do more watching before you can really make an opinion on them. But in general, they are an important component. Yeah,
because like even LeBron, he didn't really become like GOAT status until like probably after 2010 when he started getting on better teams, started winning championships.
And winning championships, yep.
Like, because like he got to the playoffs for a number of years, but he could never get to the finals because he was on the Cavs. Like,
or he got there one time, but I think they got swept, or it was a 5-game series where he lost to the Spurs.
Right.
And if people take those stats, for example, and they handpick it, and you take a chunk of LeBron's career out, you go, well, he had like 5 years on this team, and they went to the finals once and lost. Why would you ever compare him to MJ? But if you just take his years with the Heat, for example, you say, well, he made it 2 out of 4 years. We can compare him to MJ. You can't handpick those. He had Dwayne Wade, he had Chris Bosh, he had Udonis Haslem, he had help. He didn't have help on the Cavs the first time around. He had a little more on the second time around with Dellavedova was good. Obviously, Kyrie Irving, among other people helping him, Tristan Thompson. But it's all circumstantial.
Yeah, for sure. Actually, okay, so here's a question, because I feel like everybody asks this question on every sports podcast, because I'm just talking about whatever. You don't have to do this on your own podcast. So I want to know your take on who you think is better, Michael Jordan or LeBron James.
I knew this was coming. It really depends on what do you mean by better? Like a better player, better legacy, better... Because it really depends on how you define
like,
it.
there's so many different...
I knew that question was coming.
I mean, like, I was trying not to ask that question, but honestly, it's like the thing about that question is, if you were to talk about it on your podcast, everybody would be like, oh, cool. Sports podcast talking about the GOAT status, cool. And then they move on. But for me, it's just like, that's not
You're touching upon everything.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want to know, in terms of legacy, who do you think has a better legacy?
So legacy, obviously the whole story of LeBron has not been told yet. Those released tapes haven't come out yet. They're not making a documentary about him yet like they have with MJ, because he's been retired for almost 20 years. But in terms of legacy and just overall player, I'm going to say MJ. And I'm not going to pull out the 6-0 finals record on him. That is a fact. He does have an advantage on him, and LeBron's like 4-6, I believe, in the finals, something like that.
Yeah.
He's been to the finals 10 times, which is great. I'm going to give it to MJ because of his intensity and his will to win. He had a three-peat with them. He left. He went to play baseball for different reasons. Some people were saying betting. Some people were saying because his dad unfortunately passed away and his dad had a love for baseball. He came back and he won them 3 more. And then the team fell apart and they couldn't win anymore, and he went to the Wizards. That alone is a testament to the impact that Michael Jordan had on that team. Then if you actually watch his documentary and you look at all the tapes, there are these rookies that are coming in after they won their first 3 championships, and they're lollygagging around. They're like, oh, I'm on the Bulls. We have 3 championships. And he would just about grab him by the shirt and say, you don't have 3 championships. Me and the guys on this team last year have 3 championships. His intensity and his will to discipline everyone around him and help them be better. He would trash talk everyone. He would do everything he could to them in practice to make them better, and they'd call him a bully. But when the game started, when that first buzzer came off, when the tip-off happened, he did everything he could to help them. I'm not saying LeBron doesn't do that. I am saying you don't hear that intensity coming out of him. Same thing with Kobe. Even when that team was winning like 15 games in his year of retirement, that doesn't mean anything to him in terms of the playoffs. He knows they're rebuilding. He knows they're all young. He is there in practice ripping Jeremy Lin's heart out, saying, shoot it, I dare you. And then he'd shoot it and he'd go, got him. Clearly he's weak-minded. He's going to listen to what the opponent says. That sounds like a bully. I'm not saying that's good for the other player's psychological health in the moment, but what they're doing is they're taking it to the extreme, and they're doing things that would maybe even be controversial to make sure that that team wins. I haven't heard a lot of those LeBron stories in general, and I think I'm just going to give the intensity factor and the will to win and that clean 6-0 record to MJ.
Yeah, no, that pretty seals the deal for me.
And it's kind of circumstantial as well for me to say this, and it's not fair because the Lakers were hobbling around. But in my opinion, 2 years ago, that team that LeBron was on, where he was mostly healthy, you should at least be able to take them to the playoffs. How is that team any different from that Cavs team that he took to the playoffs every year?
Yeah.
I get it's the West, but they were a 9 or a 10 seed and they were eliminated. And everyone's saying Lonzo was out and he's supposed to be initiating, everything up court. He's like a rookie, first of all, or it's his second year. You can't make excuses for them to not make the playoffs. You can make an excuse for them to not win the finals. But I'm sorry, if LeBron James is on your team and they're a qualified NFL or NBA team and they can play games, they should be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So that kind of rose some eyebrows as well. And if you want to say he's in the latter half of his career, look what he did this year. He blew up again. Like I said, everything is circumstantial, but in terms of legacy, I got to give it to MJ for those reasons.
I think also in terms of LeBron too, he's just one of those players that needs help around him too. I mean, you can argue the same thing with MJ, but
Scottie was great. Steve Kerr was great for sure, but
at the same time, in today's NBA, most people build super teams. I mean, because everybody argued with Golden State. It was like, oh, they're just a super team. They're the only super team in the league. Well, no. Did you look at the Rockets?
Yeah.
There's other super teams in the league. You can't really pass nowadays without a super team. So if you don't have a super team right now, you're basically probably going to be either 8th, 7th, 6th seed and then probably knocked out the first or second round. It's the real people who are like the Bucks, for example, or even if you want to look at the Heat this year, they killed it. They just went up against LeBron and AD. I feel like they would have had a championship if they were up against anybody else in the West.
Right.
So I just think with LeBron, if he's not on a super team and he's carrying one, that kind of hurts him more than it does good for him. Because, you even saw it in 2019. If you really turned on your playoff mode, why did you not make it?
Yeah, why didn't you ramp it up in the last 20 games when it looks like they're on the verge of it? And if he wants to say, well, I didn't want to risk my knees for an 8-seed team that's going to get knocked out, fine. But I will say MJ wouldn't do that. I think that he would play every single game, even if they were fighting for a 7 seed, even if they were fighting for an 8 seed. He doesn't preserve his body. He preserves his team's ability to win and make it to the finals every year.
Yeah, so, well, we just played.
That's why I don't like talking about that, man. There's so many things to pick apart, and it really depends. I understand why you brought it up.
No, I just wanted to just pick your brain a little bit because you're the sports guy. So and it's like everybody's got that opinion if you're the sports guy.
There's my stance on it.
So yeah, all right. So now you don't have to talk about it on your podcast. So moving on to some more topics from the audience. One of my favorite questions that I got was no, I'm not gonna ask that one. What is some of your embarrassing work stories?
Oh, bro. So
don't worry, I got some too. Don't worry.
I'll start with the not so exciting ones and I'll go to the end. But basically, there's one where for embarrassing, I would wear my shirt backwards.
Wait,
and it's like a button up, but it's kind of like this one for anyone watching the visual version. But it only has one at the top, but the button isn't. It's super thin, which is still no excuse. Or there's ones with a slight collar, and they kind of look the same everywhere. Even the ones with the button. It's kind of hard to tell, especially when you're like me and you wake up 10 minutes before work and you live 10 minutes from work and you drive to work very quickly and don't get caught for speeding. So I've done that a few times, and I'll either have a customer or my own boss call me out on it and say, hey, you're, I don't know how to say this, your shirt's backwards. So I'd go to the bathroom and change that. But there was this one time where, so I work at a shoe store, and there's tall stuff that I'll have to get a step stool, even though I'm 5'9", which is by no means tall. I'll go up and try and grab something off the top shelf. But when it's especially slow, our main priority is to keep the store looking good so that when people come in, they can see everything and they're like, oh, it's more visually appealing to shop. What would you rather shop out of? A place that's organized or something with shoe boxes on the floor? You know what I mean? So we're supposed to straighten it. And I bent down to grab one of the boxes and put it in its right spot because people just toss it wherever they want. And I ripped the back of my khakis and everything's completely visible.
Oh my God.
And here's the worst part. I didn't know I did it. I felt something in hindsight, looking back on it. I was like, wow, I felt something pop. I don't know. So then, hour goes by. Time for me to go on my lunch break. I'm at the 5-hour mark on my 8-hour shift. I go in there, I go to the bathroom, and there's oddly enough a mirror on the door that faces the toilet. So I go to the bathroom, stand up, turn around to go grab the paper towel, and in that moment, I can see behind me for a second, see a giant hole in the back of my pants. I'm at work. I don't bring a spare pair of pants. Why would I?
Right, yeah.
So I just kind of get back out there, radio my boss. I go, hey, I ripped my pants, so I'm going to come back out with a sweatshirt tied around my waist, and please don't ask any questions. We were slow, but we weren't slow to the point I didn't have any encounters throughout that hour, so I really wonder how many people I helped out. They said thank you. I turned around, and they went, wow, okay.
So, it's like you didn't see any of your, like, coworkers or anything, like, while you were on the floor?
I guess they didn't see that part of me. Because that's the bad part.
I was sitting here like, bro, like your coworkers couldn't do you a solid and just tell you?
They're pretty nice, so I'm going to go off the assumption that they didn't see it, but it was a good hour, and as soon as I saw it, I knew when it happened. I was like, oh, that's what that pop was. I probably should have, questioned that, but I didn't.
So then, like, when it initially happened, do you remember, like, what you thought of it initially? Like, was it just...
Oh. Maybe they're stretching or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I was just like, okay. One of my most embarrassing... actually, this happened recently before. So I just got hired at a new workplace, so I can now talk about my old workplace. So basically, I worked at a movie theater, and one of my most embarrassing stories. This is when I became a manager there. This happened about a month ago before I left. So I was just walking around doing my managerial duties, just making sure the building looks all right, make sure no one is falling off of anything, just the normal stuff.
The routine check.
Right, yeah. And I walked past like a customer and she's like, or no, it was a dude. He was like, hey, so I went to the bathroom and there seems to be a problem there. I was like, oh, well, what is it? I'm hoping it's nothing bad. It's something bad.
Oh, no.
So he was like, there's this really bag. They're like a really big bag of feces in there. And I was like, oh. And I was like, where? It's right by the toilet, the big stall. I was like,
you were right there.
That is like my initial reaction. I was like, cool. That, like, I was so honest with this customer. I was like, well, I don't get paid enough for this. and they were like, I'm sorry. And I was like, it's fine. So I go back because it was in like our back restroom. So of course it's in the back. At least it's not in the main one where it's like everyone could see that shit, literally. But I go in there and yeah, he was not capping. It was just a bag of shit on the floor. Right next to the toilet. It's like, bro, you were right there.
So close.
Like, you were right there. Why is it in a bag? Why didn't you just go in the toilet? Like, I still question this, and this still lives in my head rent free. And this happened a month ago. Like, why? What was the point?
Maybe a dare.
No,
that's a screwed up dare.
I don't know.
Hey, you go do that in a bag, and you leave it by the toilet, and you let them know you were so close.
Here's the thing: it wasn't that busy, so we didn't have a lot of teenagers or anything like that. So it's like
that could have been an adult.
That could have been a straight up adult, just like toilets. Nah, like what was the point?
I'm feeling like a dog today.
No, that's man. There's so many things that's happened in that theater. Wait, so. With your pants story, you guys don't sell any apparel or anything? Is this strictly just shoes?
I could have thrown a sock over it. I mean, no, in terms of apparel, we have like socks. We have like those little gel things you put in the back of your heel to prevent blisters, that type of stuff. But in terms of what you'd wear, no.
Because like I was like why couldn't you just because you have a discount there, you could have just bought a new pair.
Oh, I definitely would have. It's hilarious though, because we are called Famous Footwear, but we do have different accessories. We have like little bags too that say Famous Footwear that are like reusable to prevent plastic because save the earth. But we have this one guy come in and he asked all three of us who were working there. It's a small story. Comes up to my main manager first and goes, "Do you guys have Puma shirts?" And she goes, "Oh no, we have other apparel." She's thinking, yeah, whatever, like maybe he thought. Since we have like little bags and socks that even though it's called Famous Footwear. She goes, "No, we don't." He doesn't believe her. Goes to the next person. "Where are your Puma shirts?" Now assuming that we have them and we just do not want him to know where they are.
Oh my God.
Goes up to her and she's like, "Yeah, we don't have any. Not even online? No, we don't. We just have footwear." Then I'm lucky number 3. I've seen the whole thing unfold at this point. He's playing three corners on the store,
Right.
works his way up to me at the register, buys his shoes at Famous Footwear, which is what you would buy at Famous Footwear, and goes, "Do you guys have Puma shirts anywhere?" I was like, "No, we just sell footwear." I look at him I was like, "Yeah, we are Famous Footwear," and he goes, "All right, sounds good. I'm just looking for it." I'm like, "There is a Puma store 2 doors down. They might have that."
Nah, he's gonna go there looking for shoes.
No, we're hiding it. We're hiding it from it.
No. Actually, you know what he's gonna do? He's gonna go down to Puma and ask for Nike.
Yeah, no.
It's like, dude, the Nike store is right across the street, and then he's gonna go to Nike and be like, "You guys have Adidas here?"
Yeah, he's gonna slam his fist on the table. "I know you have it. You're hiding it from me." I was just so in awe. I'm like, okay,
do you guys have Puma shirts?
No.
You're famous, dude. Your sign is like illuminated. Like how do you?
I don't know.
Even,
But then he didn't believe us. It's like, okay.
You'd be surprised how many times I've caught people in the middle of, the act, if you know what I'm talking about, at a movie theater.
Goodness gracious, people.
Oh, we had to do this thing called it's not really anything like creative, but it was like our theater checks.
Mm-hmm.
Where basically like we had to go in there and like check like if it was too hot, too cold in there, if the sound was sounding okay, if the movie's playing, all that stuff, and just overall like, hey, is everything okay in here? I remember this one time I was going up like the back stairs in some of the theaters, like, you know what I'm talking about, and I went up there, and then there's just this couple who's keep in mind, the guy is just actually trying to watch the movie. Like he's just sitting there like just sitting there like, okay, please stop, stop this, please. And the woman is just touching him in weird ways. I was like, okay. And so then like he looks in the corner of his eyes, he sees me, and then like he immediately just goes like, stop. And then like the woman looks over her shoulders, sees me, and then pretends to cuddle up to him. I was like,
that's not what was going on.
That was not what was going on, buddy.
Yeah, it's just, my thing is, for those of you that try to do that in movie theaters,
don't.
Why?
Like, I just want to know why. Like, please don't, but like, what's the appeal?
I really don't get it, because you're gonna get caught regardless of what you do. The worst part was like there is some other people in the row too, so it's like
subtle,
right? Like it's like, wow, very subtle of you. There's kids in this aisle. Anyway,
and cameras.
Oh, actually, no, there's no cameras. We should have cameras in there.
Don't tell the audience that. They're like, oh, he'll never find out.
I mean, we should, because like all we need to. Well, I'm still working there, but I mean, like they should, because I mean, like let's say somebody loses something and they're like, oh, I was in theater insert number here,
right,
but then they were actually in another one. Then we can go and actually look in the one that they were in, stuff like that. Or I mean, like we can even catch stuff like people sneaking in food, which we still know regardless.
Yeah,
because like y'all are not slick.
I feel like that's just one of those battles that you just don't fight.
Yeah, I mean, and even then, it's like most of the time people still buy popcorn or a soda from us. So it's like, you bought something from us.
Yeah.
Like, you still contributed to the business, so cool. I remember finding a really big bag of Wingstop. I will admit, I did not know about that. They got really creative because we did not know. Like, normally we already know. And honestly, most of us don't care just as long as you clean up after yourself.
Yeah.
Most people don't. And I had to clean up ranch off of our seats. It was terrible.
Oh.
Terrible. I mean, there's so many more work stories I got, but I mean, I'll probably just save that for another time. One of the final questions I got, because people that know you, obviously, here's like something funny. Can you please, and I'm quoting them right now, can you please explain the origin of your love of feet? At least the joke.
Oh, because you said please. No.
Oh my god, okay.
So I'll explain the origin of the joke. It is a complete joke. Has no real behaviors or wants behind it.
It's not real at all, I promise.
Yeah, it's just not real. So I think it's going into my junior year of high school, which is almost 4 years ago now. That seems crazy.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
because we're going to be college juniors. Yeah, we're
I
old.
don't want to grow old.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So basically, I'm at a movie party thing with Ryan and 2 or 3 or 4 other people at our friend Maya's house.
For some reason, I don't remember this either. It's like
Yeah, it's a movie night. I forget. We're watching like a ton of different things. I think like Kung Fu Panda was on and other stuff.
good.
Yeah. And there's like a couch on the left, couch on the right, and a couch behind, and people are like laying across the couch on the left and the couch on the right. And the couch in the center that's kind of facing the projector or TV or whatever we were watching stuff on, it had like, it was you, Bailey, Maya, and someone else laying vertically. And I was like, I know most of them, but not very well, so I don't want to be rude and ask for anyone to scoot over. So I'm just chilling on the ground with a pillow. I'm like, whatever. And someone, I forget who it was, said, Corey, come up here and lay with us. I was like, oh, it's cool. There's no space. They go, no, it's fine. Lay horizontally. So let me paint the picture. Everyone's laying vertically. I'm laying horizontally. And Maya or someone like wiggles their toes. And I'm like, well, this is awkward. Time to make light of it. I like this. I just look at her foot. And she's like, oh, hell no.
I think we knew someone at the time that had an actual foot fetish.
Oh, yeah. I think I know who you're talking about. But so that probably scared everyone even more. They're like, oh, another one. But so that's a complete joke. I bring it up the next morning, and then it kind of just comes up in conversations every once in a while. And then the summer happens, and I'm like, okay, it's dead. The joke's dead. That was nice. Get in a newspaper, and someone raises their hand and just outs it. Like at this point, the joke has probably gotten to 10 or 20 people. It's like the virus in December of last year. It's not a big deal, but you know it's there.
Yeah.
But so it's getting to that point, and someone just raises, or no, the teacher goes, so we're just going to dip our toe in the water with this concept. It's a basic level class. We're not going to get too in depth. And someone just raises their hand and goes, did you say dip your toe in the water? And she goes, I sure did. And they go, Corey likes toes. So the virus has spread. Now the whole class knows.
It's like
whole class
It's like
knows
nobody
now.
asked. Why did you?
Yeah. I was like, that didn't need to happen. So everyone looks at me and I'm like, she's like, do you? I'm like, well, it's kind of a joke. And the teacher goes, sure it is. So that grows.
Before I knew that it was a complete joke, I thought that it was just something that you not were proud of, but more was comfortable with people knowing about. So
Yeah.
I thought it was real for a while, and then I think like we were hanging out one night, and you were just like, "No, it's a complete joke." I was like, "Cool."
And I mean, this was the first year I accepted it's not going to go away. So the senior gift I got from a few people, which is a foot pillow, I brought up to campus. And now anyone who wants to come say hi can learn the first thing they need to know about me.
That was such a funny gift when they gave it to you.
I was like, oh my goodness. They're like, close your eyes. I'm like, I wonder. They're like, hold out your hands. Okay, it's squishy. It's a foot.
Well, anyway, that wraps up this episode of the Toast on Rye podcast. Again, big thanks to Mr. Cory Sparks. Wait, hold on. One more thing before we go. I am jealous of your name.
I knew you were going to say that. You've said that before.
Dude, I've been saying this since I met you. You have a YouTuber name and you're wasting it. No, I'm kidding.
I'm making my way over there. I'm podcasting now. I just got to get the visual aspect in there.
Right. But yeah, that wraps up this episode. If you guys enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe if you're on YouTube, and follow me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts if you're listening to this on the go. Also, check out All Sports Now. I'm the editor on that one, and that's Corey's podcast as well. He talks about all sports now. It's that's pretty much how it goes. It's a good time over there too. So yeah, like I said, like and subscribe, comment below any questions that you want me to talk about on the next episode, or if you want to send any topics, articles, questions, advice, stuff, you can send that to toastonryepodcast@gmail.com, or you can always follow me on social media as well. That'll be on the screen as well. And yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Peace.